So Ray has worked for NASA for about 35 years, and he retired in 2021. And he received his bachelor's degree at ODU and master's in mechanical engineering. And he worked for the Instrument Research Division during the time that he was here. But what he has done is, even before he retired, he in 1999, he decided, him and his wife Susan, we're going to go through the 7 continents. And so they've done a lot of traveling, and they have 2 left. I want to make sure South America and Antarctica are the 2 that are left. Okay, so when Ray retired and I retired at the same time, we were talking about here coming to LA and stuff, and he said was going on an Africa trip, or you just had, or whatever, and I said, perfect. Life after Langley, life after Langley. You're going to be one of the people I nab, which is the same thing with Tony. So with that, Ray's going to go first with Africa, and he's going to give us a few tips, but hopefully show us all of the interesting pictures that he took when he was on his trip. So great for you and Susan. I'm so happy.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so yeah, she asked me to talk about our trip to Africa about a year ago. The kind of starting off with, and you see there, we talked about Kenya and Egypt, which we made it to. We were originally planning to go to Morocco as well, but there was a little change in plans, and you'll see why. Kind of the dates might give it away as far as when we were there. And then my wife did a great job. She uses Facebook. She would chronicle kind of our adventures each day with a little collage of pictures and a quick summary of where we were. So I'm stealing most of her material. The first thing is a map over there showing where we were going. And we part of it was trying to figure out where to go first, where to go last. So we decided to go the furthest away, which was Kenya, then hit Egypt and then Morocco, and then come on back home. That was the original plan. And that's just a picture at the place where we stayed at in Kenya, where it was near the game drives that we could go on. Let's see. Okay, well, you asked me to put the background, but I think you've already covered this, so I don't really need to go over that, I don't think. Yeah. Okay, so the travel plans, as I mentioned, where we were going, we actually went with a tour company, Gate One. We've used them for about 6 trips now. We've been very happy with the accommodations, the tour guides, the information they provide where we go. It makes the ease of travel very nice as far as not having to plan every step of the way. So the first 2 with Kenya and Egypt were that way. The Morocco piece we had done on our own, and I'll talk a little bit at the end of tips on how we went about that. But that just kind of gives you an overview where we were going as far as going into Nairobi, up to the lake, and I won't say it right, Elementia, then down to Masamaro for the drive, and then back. And then Egypt, it actually included a 4-day Nile cruise as part of the trip, but starting in Cairo, heading down south, and then heading back up to Cairo when we headed out. All right, so a little detour. As through our travels, we've realized that as we get older, the jet lag is really hard. So one thing that we've tried to do on this trip is Africa's a long way. We said, hey, let's go over to England, stay a couple of days. We love going there. We've been there a couple of times. Get a little over the jet lag before we head down and get on this. And the tours that we get on, they're busy. I mean, you're going from one place to the next. My brain gets saturated pretty quick with the information that we're learning. And we had great weather. We stayed over there just 2 nights, and it did really help with the time change and the jet lag. So just something that we've learned along the way to try to help out. Probably the highlight we did was a tour of Parliament, and it was kind of random. We were walking around. We saw you could get tickets. We walked in, and it was, with a headset, you could do a self-guided tour. It was very nice, learning a little more history about the Parliament there in London. So that was a nice way to go. And also with the flights worked out, because there's a lot of research going into flights as far as that's my part of the project. Trying to figure out when we're going, how we're going. And there were nice direct flights from Washington, D.C. to London, and then London to Nairobi. One thing I learned is Africa is huge, and it's a long way to fly, no matter where you go. The one highlight we had, though, is when we showed up at the airport in D.C., we were flying British Air. we were the only ones at the gate when we got there because I'm kind of paranoid and want to get there super early. They said, "You're upgraded to first class." And we kind of chuckled and said, "Yeah, right, whatever." And they go, "You really are?" So, well, I have never been on first class. And if I had a lot of money, I'd do it every single time. You could lay down on this, lay down on the beds, lay flat seat. That I didn't want to get off the plane when we got to London. It was too short. Oh my gosh, I'd never done that before. I've never done it again. But if you can do that, highly recommend it because it helps because you can sleep really well when you're doing those overnight flights. Anyway, just a little tidbit to enjoy your travels if you can. So the first stop after that was Nairobi, Kenya. Um, their main city, their capital of the town there. We arrived 2 days prior, and we did a little touring on our own when we were there, and I'll hit a couple of the pictures here. One thing that was very nice, we worked with a hotel to hire a driver for the day, and the nice part about that is very inexpensive. It was like $50, and he stayed with us the whole time because we didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what we were going to do. English is their official language based on being a previous British colony. So it was very easy to communicate. That was not a problem. They do speak Swahili to each other, but they could switch right over to English with no problem. We went to the Nairobi National Museum and saw some of the tribe places where they live, but they also had a cultural experience that we went to where they did dances from different tribes across the country, which was very informational, very talented people that we saw. One of the highlights, my wife being a former educator in the school system, there were a lot of kids there from different schools. They all had their own uniforms. The girls and the boys had like crew cuts, very short hair, super happy. All of them were just as nice as they could be. Obviously, we were a little different, and they were like talking to us and asking us questions. And then she got a picture with them there. So, but very friendly. Everyone was great. This picture's a little weird, I know, because I weren't supposed to take a picture. There was the president of the country was giving a talk in a building near where the museum was, but we weren't supposed to take pictures. But it's just a quick one. There was a lot of cars there. We walked right by his car. There was no one standing there. Now he was in the building. I'm sure he had security, but a little different than if we had our president speaking somewhere. I'm sure we couldn't have gotten anywhere near it. But very informal. People were standing around talking. A lot of reporters. That was just a little tidbit of information while we were there. Let's see. All right, so then we traveled up. That was in near the city. Then the first stop was the lake. This shows at the top the vehicle we were in. One nice thing about this tour, it was just my wife and I, two other people, and our guide. That was it. That was on it. And he was the driver. That was our vehicle, a modified Land Cruiser. You saw those everywhere as far as the other companies using them. That little bullet there, the African massage, I will say the roads are not the greatest, and you get beat. We laughed sometimes so hard we were bouncing so much. That was his term. He said, "You're getting an African massage." Um, Bottom left, Hokies are everywhere. My wife went to Virginia Tech. We were just stopped at a random little place to go to the restroom. There was a guy in there with a Hokie hat on. I couldn't believe it. We've seen them everywhere we've been, in China, Australia. We see somebody with a Virginia Tech shirt on, and they didn't fail when we were there. On there, we went to a reserve. It was like 48,000 acres where they were basically protecting it. Got to see quite a bit of wildlife. This white sox giraffe is an endangered species, which was nice to be able to see that. Some of these are a bit zoomed in and maybe a little grainy because we couldn't get but so close, and they didn't want us to either. And then this is a view of kind of where we were staying. It was a super nice location. It's funny because when we first got there, we got so excited, and we probably have 50 pictures of zebras, and towards the end, we're like, there's another zebra because they're everywhere. um, and then we got end of day with a rainbow there towards the end. So great weather. We were very nice. It was probably in the near 70 almost the whole time. In the morning, it would be in the low 60s, and you would think we were in Norway because the local people had parkas on and scarves and hats, and they were freezing, and we didn't understand. But they're used to, a steady temperature all day long. But they would shed them by the end of the day. It was just an interesting thing to see. All right. Then we went on to Masamara Camp. That's near the savannah where you see the big game. And we stayed in a tent, which I don't know if you can see in the middle picture. It's kind of a collage. It's a very nice tent with, queen size beds. It had its own bathroom, but the top and sides are a tent. One thing they told us to do is lock the tent up because when you're gone, the monkeys will try to get in and steal stuff. And you could hear them around, not a much, but that's where we stayed. But each day, then from there, he would take us out. They called it a game drive. It's basically driving on the dirt roads out through the savannah to see what animals you could see. And what he was trying to do is get us to see the big five, they say, the lion, leopard, rhino, buffalo, and elephant. Fortunately, we got to see all but the rhino. The only leopard we saw was sleeping in the grass. He said those are very hard to find. In fact, he was surprised we even saw one, and saw plenty of lions, plenty of elephants. And where they came up with the big five, they said were the ones that hunters tried to get. So they're the most dangerous of the animals there as far as people. Although we did learn that hippos are actually cause more deaths, he told us, than other folks because they'll be in the waterways, and if you come near them, they attack you. He said they don't even think about it, which we didn't get near them. And then they called the ugly five the stork, vulture, warthog, and wildebeest and hyenas. We saw all of those, and they are different looking creatures, that's for sure. Um, I think that's about it. Just another sunset there, and then so along the trip, along the way, when we went from the lake to the savannah, the kids would come up when you would stop, and we'd give them some candy out the window. They were just having fun running around. The main road we were on was 2 lanes, and it was for trucks, it was for cars, it was for motorcycles, it was for animals, it was for people walking. I mean, you just saw people everywhere, but that was just the way of life. They didn't seem to worry about it, and people moved on. If there was a slow up, that was it. You just waited until it cleared. And the trucks aren't quite as big as ours, but they were busy. All right, game drive. This was probably one of the most surreal things to see. And again, some of these pictures are far away. This one's pretty close up. The buffalo, excuse me, the lions, they had found out, the guides all talked to each other, had killed 2 buffalo the night before. So then they were driving out to see what's going on. That's what people want to see. Of the 2 buffalo that were laying there, one male lion was with one, and then the females and all the cubs were with the other one. They did not mix. One other male came up to the other male, and that was it. You would see hyenas and other animals hanging around, waiting to see what they could get. Um, but the surreal part was this female lion walked over near where these jeeps were sitting to get in the shade. That's what they told us. In fact, one of them leaned up against the truck, and they didn't care about you, but they wanted the shade from the vehicles. And the guide said, if they're touching your truck, you cannot move. Not allowed. So he said, you don't want them to come near you that close. Other than being scared, but they were full. They weren't worried about eating anything else. They were wound up. The weird part was they had flies all over them and blood from eating. But it was a very surreal moment and something you won't forget. That's for sure. Very different. Highlight for me was a balloon ride. I had never been in a balloon before, so we paid the money to do the sunrise balloon ride. Um, I don't know if you haven't been in one, other than when he's firing off it's very quiet, very peaceful. We were going over the savannah. You can see some of the animals down below. And it was a big balloon. I mean, there's like 16 people in this thing, but very, very awesome experience. And then they set up breakfast on the savannah there for us to eat. Um, the giraffe and the sunset, that's one you like. We ended up seeing some hippos way far away. Hyenas were everywhere. Interesting one there in the middle with the elephants. The one there had a group with him. He stopped right in front of our Jeep and just looked at us while the other ones passed the road. And then once they were gone, then he followed them. It's like they knew what was going on with the traffic. But you were not going to move when he was standing there waiting for you. But an interesting perspective. And I mentioned the people. I don't know if you see the motorcycle here with a couch on the back of it. You would see them with 5 people. You would see them with, wood supplies, plywood. If that's what you got, that's what you do. And they didn't seem to worry about it. That's just what they did to survive. That one just caught me because I couldn't believe he had it back there with all this stuff on it. And you can see he's got a lot of clothes on, a big jacket. I was in a t-shirt. It was warm to me, but not for them. And we did go to a little village near where we stayed. The people were very nice to show some of the crafts they did, how they lived. Super nice. I mean, I can't get over how nice they were. everywhere we went. So we went to some places where they made some different jewelry and would sing songs, wanted you to join in with them. I mean, it was just a good time all around. So that was our Kenyan visit. Any questions before I switch, which Egypt is quite different? Yes.
Hey, Ray.
So I'll give you a little bit. Originally, we were supposed to go to South Africa in 2020, but we had something a little bit that kind of canceled those. And wanted to go on safari. And my wife did some research and said what the closest we could go and still get on safari, and that's where Kenya came up in the list. And that was really our rationale for trying there versus going further down towards South Africa. Not that there aren't other things to see that wouldn't be wonderful, but that was kind of our thought process. It wouldn't be as far to travel because I think it was another 4 or 5 hours just to get to South Africa from Kenya because it's about midways down. Yeah. Yeah.
Food rating.
Food.
Yeah.
So we're spoiled. They catered to typical American type meals. I'm not an adventurous eater. My wife tried some things, but I don't. But yeah, wherever we stayed, there was a buffet typically. And again, part of the tour we were at. And even the hotel we stayed at in Nairobi was an American, like Marriott or something like that, that had typical American. Now, there was other things to try. I'm not a food person, so I apologize. I don't have additional information there. Um, a few other things related to that, security. Was interesting when you went to the hotel, you actually went through a secure gate before you actually got into the hotel. So these were surrounded. I never felt threatened, but that's just the way they had it set up, metal detectors and everything. Even going to the Nairobi airport, you go through security before you go into get checked in, and then you go through security again before you get on the plane. Same thing with Egypt. It was very similar. Again, never felt threatened, but that's just the way they had it set up. And then water, bottled water, they'll drink the tap water, but they say there's things in there that won't settle with us. So they recommend using bottled water, even to brush your teeth. Never used tap water for anything. So we did in both places and never had a problem. Any other question? Oh, yeah.
What is the lady holding, or what is that, olives or beads?
Where are we looking here?
The
Up here?
at the
Yeah,
top.
there was a bead factory.
Okay.
Yes, what they made, I don't remember, but they were making beads there. It was actually quite a few of them there, and it was for a women's shelter. They were making different types of beaded jewelry and items that they were selling to raise money for a women's shelter nearby where we were. Whoops, I hit that button again. Where we were staying. Yep. And then the gentleman here and his tribe, they had small things the kids had made that they were selling as well. I mean, they're trying to make some money. I don't blame them. And this was their pet. They had found when it was small, and it was just walking around with them. Didn't mind. Yeah. Oh, for the tours? Well, we did it. Wow. We were probably 6 to 8 months in advance when we booked it.
Okay.
Just because she keeps an eye on when the deals come out and they'll have a special and hey, we'll get it at that time. The other thing with flights, the sooner you can get them, because the price is really, I watch them and as they start going up, then I usually get them because I don't want them to go up too much. But that's typically the way we've done it. We haven't done any, they do have last minute ones when they have openings, but we haven't done that yet. So as part of the tour, they kind of fill your day every day. They do give you in some places you'll have free time to go do something on your own, wherever you're staying. Like in Cairo, if there was some time, you had some hours, you could go off and wander or that. But because we were part of tour groups, you're moving. They fill up your days and hey, we're going to be here at this time. We're leaving here. They're going to see this, come back. So it made it a no-brainer from that perspective. Yeah. The time before, like when we got there a couple of days early, we arranged that time when we got there. We said, hey, we go to the museum. What do you recommend we do? How do we get there? They took care of us, that kind of thing. Now in Cairo, and I'm kind of jumping the gun. They were a little more leery. Hey, don't go to this area. Only go here if you're going to go out from the hotel, so to speak. Nairobi, they didn't really say anything, but where we were, there wasn't much to see. I mean, it's a city with a lot of people milling about. But that, yeah, we're pretty set on the tours from that perspective. Anything else? I got 5. Oh, I'll jump through Egypt then. Cairo, that was just a picture showing the contrast of a big city. There's like 22 million people. Their work day is Sunday to Friday, not Monday to Friday. So they're off on Fridays and Saturdays, which made it interesting. I didn't know that. Went to the Egyptian Museum, things up to 5,000 years old that we saw from all the pharaohs who made, overwhelming the amount of ancient artifacts that were in this museum. If you do go in the future, they've built a giant museum that's going to be able to house a lot more, not far from where this one is. So if you do look for a tour there, that one's going to be opened up, I think, soon. They've been working on it for years. And we'll move along. We got to see the big ones. They have you pose with these little goofy pictures. They have one with, you're kissing the Sphinx, that kind of stuff. Massive structures. There's actually, you can get a ticket to go inside. It's just very small and hard. You don't see a lot when you get in there, but it gives you a little more perspective on how it's built, even though it's still hard to figure out how they did it. Just massive structures. Luxor, we took a flight down there, which is near the Valley of the Kings. Basically, when they did the pyramids, hey, this is where all the kings and their treasures are buried. And they said, oh, that's probably not a good idea. Well, let's go into the valleys and hide it. So that's what they did. And they're still uncovering them now. They still have sites going on. They're finding them all the time. Just ridiculous artwork inside that's still there from thousands of years ago. And these structures are just hard to fathom unless you're there and you see them yourself. That's our buddy King Tut laying over there. Abu Simbel, that's a Ramses II, which was considered their big pharaoh who had many victories. So this is a giant structure that they actually moved from where it originally was, block by block, because they were worried about water coming up. Back in the 60s, I believe it was. Don't quote me because I have to go back. But to see that in person and that they moved it is ridiculous. It's just a massive structure to him. He liked himself too. He liked to build a lot of things. That's what our guide told us. He was an Egyptologist, so he was just full of information and able to spit that out. And then heading home. So October 7th last year, when the war broke out in Israel, I'll get to the tips, but I'll go here. They said there were going to be a lot of demonstrations in Morocco. They didn't worry about security, but we were worried they would shut down the airports. We couldn't get around. So we cut it short and came on home while we were in Egypt. So that's why I said almost Morocco. Plus we would have been on our own. We wouldn't have had the luxury of having a tour group kind of manage our time, even though we had already set it up ahead of time. All right, tips. I got 1 minute left. Going to early, upgrading flights. We usually go like economy plus just to give us more leg room. It's a little more. It's not like first class or business class. That's something we've learned that we've enjoyed doing. We did get global entry to help coming back into the country because we've got stuck in lines coming home and it's been tough. And some of the credit cards will actually pay for to do it. It's like TSA pre-check. We used a carry-on bag for this trip, believe it or not. We brought lots of layered clothes. These pants, for example, which can be converted into shorts, we used them quite a bit. And then we brought things to be able to wash a few clothes while we were there to make it through. But when you're changing flights, you don't want to lose luggage, and getting through the airports was a lot quicker that way. Let's see, was there anything else? Small packs. Yeah, a couple of pairs of rain gear. We didn't need it, fortunately, but they don't get that much rain. Phone plans. There's a WhatsApp. I don't know if people are familiar with that. All our guides use that because they're in a foreign country on Wi-Fi. That was easy to use. The bottled water I mentioned. Level of security, don't be surprised. Register with the State Department. That was us to get the notifications while we were there. That was nice. Monetary exchange was good to know because it was quite different from Egypt to Kenya. And then some of the sites we use for planning. And I never did change any currency. Everybody takes credit cards, and they'll love to take your US dollars. They got no problem with that. You might lose a little bit on the exchange, but we didn't use it very much, so it didn't really matter too much from that perspective. And then the last one, we used Uber in Nairobi and in London. Did not use it in Cairo. We used the hotel transportation and the tour group. So that's all I had. Sorry, I got stuck on Kenya, but any other questions?
You said you used Uber. Did you just use the regular Uber app that you have on your phone for this
Yep.
country?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, getting to the airport in Kenya was $5. It was like $50 in London, even though the same distance. It's a lot cheaper. Yeah, that's it.
How did you know to register with the State Department?
When I was looking for information on foreign. You have to look at what entry requirements are for health and visas and all that. It was something they recommended on the State Department. It was very easy to do. Yeah. The other thing is to know the health requirements depending on what country you're coming from and where you're going. Because yellow fever is something to be considered about. If you're coming from the US, it's different than if you're going to Kenya, then going to Egypt. It may be different and they change. You know, you might book your flight 6 months, they'll change it before you leave. So be careful about things like that as well. All right. Thank you.